Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor and pleasure to bring you today our guest poet, Jacob R Moses. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. The reason I produced this series, Poets of the East, is that I think that artists process the world in a very special way. They're attentive, they're sensitive. And to me, as much as I enjoy our little Zoom meets or the in real life stuff that happens from time to time, I really always think that I want to know more. I want to hear how this person evolved. So I'd like to start with the young Jacob R. Moses. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, brother, is what's the earliest book you can remember having?
Oh, my earliest book, I was 24 years old, and that was back in 2005. If anybody wants to do the math, it was called Serotonin Seas, and it was published under my legal name, which is Jack M. Freedman.
Okay. Well, I,
And
I didn't explain myself well enough. I meant the first book you remember as a child.
Good Night Moon.
Midnight Moon. Okay, great. And are there any of your child books that you kept around you for a while?
Yeah. I mean, I have a daughter and I did read to her, and the one book that definitely has a lot of significance to me is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein.
Nice, nice, great. So, were you encouraged as a young child, as a student, to write, or was that dismissed out of hand?
It wasn't dismissed. I don't know if it was necessarily encouraged. It was just something I slipped into.
Okay. Next question. Now, of course, we all have our writing assignments for school.
hmm
Did you engage yourself in things like the yearbook or the school newspaper and stuff like that?
Not really. I was not really much of a joiner growing up. In a lot of ways, I was a lone wolf, I would say.
Okay.
And I didn't really start writing until like my early 20s. Well, seriously writing until my early 20s. I mean, I used to write as a teenager, but a lot of that is obsolete at this point.
Okay. Did you journal?
Yes, I did journal. I did definitely journal. I did have one of those diaries that I used to write online.
Ah,
I
okay.
believe it was called the Open Diary.
Okay. Now, what authors made an impression on you even when you were a child?
Well, definitely Shel Silverstein. I have a number of his books. So, Where the Sidewalk Ends and A Light in the Attic are two collections I currently have in my library. So,
If
those
you were
two
gonna,
definitely made an impact.
if you were gonna describe his style of writing, how would you characterize it?
I would probably say that, I mean, now that I'm a lot more familiar with his adult writing, it was definitely something I found to be eccentric and in some ways, what's the word I'm looking for? Irreverent in some ways.
Okay, cool. So, at a certain point in every writer's life, I think that we begin to kind of shift that center of balance to from I'm a person that writes to I'm a writer. Did you have that shift? When did it happen?
I think it definitely happened when I started getting work published in journals. And I think even then I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome. I think that imposter syndrome was dissipated, or it dissipated, around the time that I was getting my master's degree. It also happened around the time that I got a poets and writers profile in their directory.
Okay. Did you have designs on a writing career when you were young?
I did think about becoming a journalist, yes. That
Okay.
wound up not really materializing, but poet works. I also thought about being a stand-up comedian at one point.
Well, there's a little stand-up comedian in many poets, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I have my comically timed pieces, yeah.
Now, when did you start performing poetry?
I started performing poetry in 2002, and it was a year and a day after 9/11.
Oh,
So, September 12th, 2002, I felt like I couldn't hold my tongue any longer as far as the things that were happening politically.
well,
And namely, the things that came up for me was the racism that came along with the whole flag waving, patriotic claptrap that I was hearing on a day-to-day basis, especially considering that there was a lot of prejudice against Muslims, and I wasn't down with that at all.
now were you in New York for that?
Yes, I was. Yes, I
Now,
was. I live in Staten Island, and I remember hearing the air raid sirens go off, and I also remember going back to college at that point. I was in college, and the smells were horrific. I never knew what flesh smelled like until I wound up waiting for a train.
okay. Now, I
Oh,
mean, obviously,
I should also mention that I did walk past Ground Zero while they were putting out the fires, and that was kind of a sobering thing too.
I bet, I bet. Now, the poets, obviously you've studied writing, you're a professor of writing. What poets do you think really stand out for you personally?
Oh, for certain, Lawrence Ferlinghetti is a big one for me. Coney Island of the Mind was one of my first introductions to poetry. And I also liked Robert Frost and Emily Dickinson, but for certain, Ferlinghetti really did it for me and really greatly informed and influenced my own writing.
Let me ask you what I'm going to call a related poetry question. Are there any songwriters that you think are equal parts poet and songwriter?
Paul Simon, definitely. I was always a fan of and Garfunkel. I always appreciated their lyrics, and even Paul Simon as a solo artist. He's one of those people that I would probably faint if I saw him up close. He's one of my greatest influences as a writer. Um, I
Any other?
definitely say Billy Joel. I think definitely Alanis Morissette is a big one for me also.
I'm going to recommend, if you don't know his work, check out some Warren Zevon.
Oh, I'm familiar with Warren Zevon, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with some of his songs. I mean, Werewolves of London immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, he has quite a range, and I get a lot of inspiration from him. My big rock influence, and I always kind of think of him as a gatekeeper for me. I'm a little older than you. Was
Mhm.
Jim Morrison?
Oh, absolutely. I can't leave him out by any
Yeah,
means.
I used to do guerrilla theater, and we would stand in a shopping cart, push one of us would push the other through a shopping mall, and we would recite Morrison a la carte, if you will. it, uh, it scared the straights quite a bit, yeah.
I can
Okay.
imagine.
Let me ask you a kind of a philosophy of poetry question. Now, there are those who argue you should write every day regardless. Just pen to paper, put something down, sort of like practice. The
Hmm.
other side of that spectrum is you should only write when you're inspired. You should save it, not try to force it. Just wait for inspiration and then strike. Where do you fall in that spectrum from write every day to write only when inspiration happens?
I think write only when inspiration happens. I
Great.
definitely think that works because I'm not the type of person who likes to put too much pressure on himself when it comes to that. I mean, I feel the same way about social media. Whenever I write anything on social media, the inspiration has to hit me, and sometimes it can be a little bit blue. So when that hits me, I may leave it up for a while and then decide, I don't want this crap representing me, so I'll delete it every so often. I do edit myself quite a bit, but when inspiration hits, it works, it hits, and I write.
Okay, next. Are there topics that you find yourself returning to regularly?
Yes, definitely political issues for certain. Um, there's no shortage of things to protest.
Fish in a barrel.
Right, right. Definitely not a needle in a haystack for certain. Another thing that I tend to go back to is mental health. I am someone with bipolar disorder, so plenty of times my poetry will be inspired by that, whether it be depression or whether it be mania or whether it be anything in between. I know that when I'm experiencing both at the same time, some of my best work comes out.
Okay. Now, regarding social commentary,
Hmm.
do you think that the artist in general or the writer in particular has a responsibility to address issues of the time?
I believe so. I believe so. I'm of the mind that the artist does need to reflect the times. I'm a big believer in the artist needing to do so. I mean, Nina Simone, I believe,
Oh,
said something along those lines. I can't quote it right now, but um, the zeitgeist is very important to be in touch with. And for 24 years, I've been a part of that.
yeah, you never know who you're going to touch when you write something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. I want to be able to be the poet who says the things that people have a hard time putting into words. I want to be the poet that has his fingers on the pulse of said zeitgeist. I mean, somebody described me as having my fingers on the pulse of the zeitgeist, and that stuck with me big time.
And sometimes it's hard to unstick.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the pulse hasn't ceased, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's increasing, in its beats.
Yeah. Okay, next question. If a young person came up to you today and said, I write a little poetry, but I wonder, does anybody read it? Is it worthwhile? Should I spend time on writing poetry? What would you say?
100%. 100%. I think that better to write than to not write. Better to be someone who answers the call of inspiration than hanging up, so to speak. And if a young person were to come and tell me that they write and they aren't sure about whether the writing will materialize, I believe that so long as you're writing as a means of catharsis, so long as you are writing as a means of conveying a message of some form or another, it's very important to get that message down. Very important to,
Thank
regardless of
you.
whether you share it or not.
Right. Thank you, because you queued up the question after next, but I'm going to go to that right now. Do you think that narrative is important in poetry?
You know, I am of the mind that not everything has to be linear. I mean, there are plenty of narrative poets out there that I appreciate, but I don't believe it's necessary.
Yeah, a poet of my acquaintance, Robert Cole, used to write the most beautiful, what I called chime poetry. In
Mhm.
other words, it was a series of visions, a series of images. They blended together well. It was beautiful to listen to. Never really said a thing. There wasn't really a narrative component to it, but it was lovely. And I am of the school myself that I believe in narrative poetry. I think it's important. I think it takes us and makes us more accessible to the
It
average.
does. It can make it accessible. I think if you're not using a straight linear narrative, I do believe that the imagery carries the poem.
So, well, thank you. Thank you. I can completely agree with you. Now, philosophical question. What makes a good poet?
What makes a good poet? That's a tough one.
Yeah, well, I only ask hard questions to smart people.
I appreciate that. I think a good poet, it's kind of hard to gauge that, but I believe that someone who introduces a new idea could be a good poet, someone who makes you think, someone that makes you feel. It's got to have that feeling to it. And I believe that connection, being able to connect to an audience, not necessarily other poets, because I think there are plenty of poets out there that don't think about themselves, only think about how they rate to other poets. But I'm a big believer that you want to be able to not just relate to other poets, you want to be able to relate to a general population as well. You want to be able to relate to people who don't even realize they need that genre.
Hey, now this question I only ask once in a while, but it's a good one, I think.
Hmm.
Is poetry important?
100%. How can I not say poetry is important, you know? I mean, I write it, I read it, I enjoy it. And I think it's definitely very important for people to tap into the things that you might not necessarily find in a novel
Well, the other
or
thing
any
that I
other
tell
genre.
people, because I was asked this question a lot, is if poetry wasn't effective, if poetry wasn't powerful, would they use it in chanting at sports events? Would they use it on the Marshall Field, ginning up soldiers' enthusiasm with
Or
chants?
cadences, yeah.
Yeah. And my God, the most important thing in this commercial world is the jingle that sells us product because we're all meant to be consumers. That's poetry too. So I always say in the affirmative, poetry is very important.
Absolutely.
Now,
And then, of course, the Hallmark cards. Can't forget about those. I think they're probably some of the most suicidal people out there.
yeah, I have always been appalled by the messages in most commercial greeting cards. And I by nature want to just write whatever the event is. And my darling wife will say to me, but I know if you have to look around for an hour to find the one that's close, I know that you've cared more. And I said, okay, what can I do?
Right.
And sir, the last question, my brother, the last question is, do you have a question for me?
Ooh. Do I have a question for you? Well, how long have you been a poet? And when did you start?
In seventh grade, I
Interesting.
remember the exact incident. I have been very intrigued by Native American culture.
Mm.
Have since my youngest days. I'd read a story about Sitting Bull and how when he traveled to meet the president of the United States to try to gain some kind of equal treatment, fair treatment, he was appalled when he saw how many people live in utter poverty, in complete devastating conditions. And he couldn't imagine how a culture could view itself as civilized and let people be so poor, so needy. And
Mm.
living in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, near a mill town, I got to see a lot of very, very poor people. And I couldn't understand how anyone regarded that civilization as less civilized, less humane. And so when I was in seventh grade, my English teacher asked us to write something about Native American culture.
Mm.
Without any forethought, I wrote, when I go hunting for the bear, my hunting bow and arrows I wear. I see the bear go to his cave to corner me. Oh, what a knave. I put an arrow on my bow. I swiftly bend and let it go. The arrow went into his side, and right away I knew he's dying. But when I knelt down and then I stopped, and I think I could have dropped, the bear looked, I skipped a part. But anyway, a second bear came. The bear stood still and looked at me, and then I knew this had to be the end. Yeah, so I was writing poetry with a twist from the very beginning, and I haven't stopped.
Interesting. Interesting.
Plus, in my teenage years, the Vietnam War was going on.
Mm.
And as a humanist, as an anti-war person, even in my 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th year of life,
Mhm.
I joined with those people who opposed the war. So I started writing political stuff then. Haven't
Interesting.
stopped. Too much practice of this anti-war stuff. Too much.
Mm. Mm.
My brother, now we have come to the good part.
Okay.
Now it's your turn. You want to take a minute before we start? Or are you good to go?
I think I'm good to go. I think I'm
Fantastic.
definitely good to go. So my latest book, this is just the proof book. Don't mind the stripe here. This is my proof book. I haven't gotten the actual copies yet, but this is my book Answer Key, and this is a follow-up to one of my books, Grimoire, my first book that I published under my current pen name, Jacob R Moses.
Can I ask you? I have to interrupt. Interesting title. Now, for me, I always ask poets, did the title come first and then the book, or are you writing the book and then say, okay, the title has to be X?
Well, I went through a number of titles. The original one was not otherwise specified, and then it wound up becoming Drunken Pioneer. And then I settled on Answer Key because I feel like it unlocks a lot of the mysteries that may have been included in my last book.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, please, I promise I won't interrupt anymore. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Which ones am I going to read? I mentioned Drunken Pioneer. That is a poem that I have in this book. And a little interesting story. I'm from Staten Island, and Staten Island is known for a number of things, but it's also known for being the home of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh.
Now, there is a Wu-Tang Clan named Generator. So I typed in Jacob R. Moses and I got Drunken Pioneer and I just kind of riffed off that.
Very
So
nice.
this is the poem. Stumbled upon an open mic with liquor in my lobes. Recited lyrics at a cafe with words loud and jumbled under dim yet strobing lights. Absolute Tropicana. Screwdriver pre-mixed in a plastic bottle. Bought in a bodega and a liquor store shielded in glass. Band shirts worn. Nirvana and My Chemical Romance. Alpha males deem themselves omegas as I took the mic and read. I was a screaming and radical bard, spending half my life developing and defining my poetic voice. Traveled through New York armed with a pen and Metro card. I became that smart-ass wordsmith, sometimes soothing, often annoying the status quo. Be not afraid. Be not afraid of this wizard disguised as a drunken pioneer.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
I like the mixture of what we might call very contemporary, social experience in the bar with that really interesting framing of the drunken pioneer. I very nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So, this is another one that I'm going to read. It's called Nickelodeon, and it makes reference to the inspiration behind the name of the network, the machine that people used to watch movies on and
Right.
pull a crank and whatnot. Our ancestors cranked calls to action as nickels bought 15 minutes. Legacy reintroduced by name, never known by shapes other than amorphous blobs. Green slime, orange clouds, white bubbles. Have the guts to make the grade? I double dare you to prove it. Get a little happy, happy. Give a lot of joy, joy. Modern life of Rugrats sponged off nostalgia, spun on a pinwheel, hidden in a temple blown by Nick at night. You can no longer air these shows on television. Simply mentioning Nickelodeon encourages nostalgic growth, as many will never understand the initial etymology. 5 cents operated the Nickelodeon. Sixth Sense resurrected the imagery.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. I think I'll read one more. And this is going to be, let's see, Survival Guzzle. Now, it's not often I write rhyming, well, I do write rhyming poetry. I just have to be really inspired to write rhyming poetry. And this is a guzzle, so there's a lot of internal rhyme here. They say through any season, all our people can thrive, but they are out of touch with those trying to survive. Working through a crisis while nursing wind-chapped palms. Too much labor encourages dying to survive. A secret garden forming, one covered by the webs. The truth will catch us while we are lying to survive. Too much consumption breeding. The Joneses, status high. Bankruptcy will result in one buying to survive. This moral inventory is filled with shadow selves. They force us to face demons while we're crying to survive. Emerging are the mushrooms and herbs and weeds and berries. We don't always need wings when we are flying to survive. We try to be ourselves, second to our masks, to normalize the traits we are denying to survive. Religion predatory, our worth reduced to wealth, selective faith upon which we are relying to survive. Addition of a trauma subtracts a will to live, divisions asexual, multiplying to survive. This world is too damn frustrating, and we're losing our minds. Society screws us whether we're dead or we're alive.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You have a very, in this particular poem, a very sobering analysis of the difficulties that life presents to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's probably one of my more biting social commentaries. I mean, I live it. I definitely live it. I've had periods where I've lived in poverty. Still having periods where I live in poverty.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I'm sure I'm not alone there. I'm sure there are plenty of poets who are going through the same thing I am.
yeah. Well, I think often, I won't say always, but often, because poets live by a different set of values, by a different understanding of what is valuable,
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
invariably going to be cross purposes with typical commercial society. And the
Sure.
trick, I think, is how do you keep that artist alive? How do you sustain the artist while living in the world? And while we can ignore it to an extent, we do
Mm.
so at our peril.
I've heard that like an artist is the inner child that never died. And I stay true to that.
Well, I know for me, humor is a life preserver.
Oh, big time. Big
My
time.
my default is melancholy or worse. So I I practice humor as a medicinal.
Mm. Mm. I hear that. I hear that.
Please continue, brother.
Thank you. All right, I have one that I have off the dome, and this is actually going to be in my next book, which just got accepted for publication.
Bravo.
And it is called Palace Amusements. It's the first poem in the book. Asbury Park greets me within your thin-lipped, toothy smile. At the end of every labyrinth you straddle the seashore's yen. You are a funhouse mirror distorting my figure, yet always finding abundant embodiment within my gut. My navel yearns for that connection to amusement within these vibrant walls. Love was the product of jackpots won from slot machines dispensing ducats, tokens tossed from one hand, arm pulled by the other hand. You were the windfall stashed within this chest of hazy nostalgia. Adulthood proves more haunting compared to the cart carrying me through those mysterious halls. Wishing I could be hypnotized just so I could catch a spoonful of what once satiated my satisfaction. When taste of the sacrament derived from riding a roller coaster before it became a cliche denoting a diagnosis. Before mania surged through my synapses like a Jimi Hendrix guitar solo. After bumper cars foreshadowed the accidents I'd face throughout these static frequencies of depression. If you were a Eucharist, I'd be an idolater. For you are the body of a god I tasted before knowing what it meant to be a righteous Jew. You were the excuse I needed to play hooky from Sunday school. You were the choir who greeted me before I possessed the voice to echo any calls I desperately needed to answer. You were the calming voice I needed before my own soothsaying emerged. Now the tongue with which I speak needs to taste the honey into which I dip my apple. Now this fruit stores nectar of passing years in a cloud, accessed via my digital thumbprint, repressed via my carbon footprint. Pollen is carried by a generation of workers and drones. If I left an intention on my doorstep, I'd wish for it to be carried by the westerly wind. I'd hope the corners of the crown in my castle mirrored this palace of amusements. I'd pray the pleasantries could be contained by the channels from which we feel joy. May our data be easy to transmit even if our devices are outdated. May said devices be reused as analog anecdotes. Let them be paperweights for the childhoods we cherish, preserving a trail back to the inner offspring struggling to spawn and survive.
Very nice.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. You bring a powerful passion. It's and it's well said.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Let's see. I think I'll do one more. This is called Touching the Sky. It's one of my first signature pieces. Sunrises on Saturday mornings before networks had 24-hour programming are vast memories. Sense of light and color from the test pattern. Darkness eradicated at the age of 4. Infomercials with Richard Simmons outline weight loss fallacies, crash diets, laxatives, vomiting, starve for a sense of belonging, excretion of identity, purging taboos of the psychic and psychotic. And then the colors of deal meal cards ease that need to nourish my spirit, quenching my thirst for love and wisdom. And in the morning I had no rooster to wake me, it was Tootie from the home shopping club who woke me. Gold and emeralds eased my chaos, adoration adorned and fever fueled. Perceptions of color often defined through ColecoVision, Atari, Commodore, low fidelity, higher contrast from reruns of I Love Lucy, The Twilight Zone, and The Honeymooners, and I crave boldness in those 8-bit rainbow skylines done injustice. 16 colors aren't enough. Impossible to fill in a 24-hour day with such restrictions, and I observe the sky through filters, none of which distort reality, but simply accentuate the vividness of heaven. And often I reminisce of 1985, the first time I had a numerical concept of a year, 4 years after my birth. 30 years prior to my father's passing. But these days, my eyes, a hexadecimal algorithms Pantone has yet to develop, and my vision is HDMI. Pupils are my perspective. Darkness, the onyx observation of loneliness and loss, my insatiable need to find a place within this infinite spectrum, my unfulfilled desire to belong. The wheel of fortune spins. Luck is pressed. Come on, big money, big money, big money, big bucks, big bucks, big bucks. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Stop. Pink hearts, orange stars, yellow moons, green clovers, blue diamonds, purple horseshoes, red balloons, pots of gold, rainbows, trees, blue moons, leprechaun hats, gold coins, shooting stars, crystal balls, hourglasses, keys. These are the talisman of morning magic, ambrosia of oats and marshmallows soaked in milk. But my lucky charms are my rods and cones. They allow me to admire these radiant symbols. All my photos evolve from mud, and this new set of colors is presently paradise, my heaven, my sky, my ether. Perhaps it demonstrates the incorporation of color destined to reach out. Perhaps it's friendlier than the earth upon which I stand. Perhaps I crave that which is limitless, for skies are not ceilings. The outside world is unconfined. My aura showcases skylines.
Very nice. Very nice. I enjoyed your mixing of cultural issues or vistas and the different technologies that were involved. Um, I have a very interesting introduction to technology myself. I was a poet, painter, sculptor, sketcher when I was introduced to performance light art
Mm,
while in high school. And to me, it absolutely opened up a whole new universe of art because it was not just image, it was not just sound, it was sound, image, light, color, shading, so much interactive in motion. And I became a convert. I insisted that I indenture myself as an apprentice to this art
mm,
group, and that put me on a road. And it seemed to me quite obvious that as I got work in television and work in planetariums, that computers were going to play an important part. So I took some computer courses and ended up doing commercial graphics and animation for marketing teams. And it was very important because I was able to put my kids through college doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, Atari, Commodore, that rings some serious bells for me.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was born in 1981, and so, the one thing that comes to mind for me is that technology, I saw the evolution of it. I ultimately did see the evolution of it. I am definitely an exennial. And those are people born between 1977, no, 1977 and 1983. Oftentimes referred to as the Star Wars generation.
Yeah, I'll tell you, once you paint with a laser, it's hard going back to any
Oh,
plastic medium.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I
I
would
mean,
like to share one with you,
mhm.
and it's very different than most of my political writing, which is very satirical. But this is a serious one where I tried to bridge a bit of a gap. So let me share this with you. This is called The Conservative and Liberal Mind. Spending most of my time on the hardcore progressive, oh God, even say Antifa communist. I was a communard, you know.
Oh,
So the
yeah.
conservative and liberal mind. The differences between what conservatives and liberals find are only as wide as the narrowest mind, never so deep so as to keep at bay the warrior's hand or the diplomat's play. These both, it seems, can hold quite dear a mother's love, a baby's tear, yet differ so on the country's steer. They both cherish and hope and hold to the breast a youngster's hope, an elder's rest, yet with party and polity so contest. The cherished dream, the path so grand, will part these friends, confound the trends, that each would nurture shared goals, split ends. Yet each holds his party close to his heart, and seems so to differ just in the art. Who governs best would govern least, would nourish health and wealth concede. They both despair of the moderate stare. Those great gray mumblings wander and seem not to care, unabashed and unaware. While quite glorious and passionate we play our part, with our honor high and our rhetoric smart, jousting up another hill with a will, all toward the party's coffers thrill. With pennies we'll build a wall apart, with the threadbare honor and the lawyer art. Each with his plan, each with his hope, in party thick and misanthrope, mutters and marks the passing throng, who seem not to notice, not to belong to the party, the team, the banner, the cure. No pledges they're signing, no pamphlets allure. Conservatives and liberals find they're only as divergent as the narrowest mind. They both cherish freedom, they both really care. They just see a different road over there. One says laissez faire, one says c'est la vie, a mere mortal matter of vowels, portentous difference of cadence. They flail at ennui. Vive
Mm,
la différence, I'm wont to say. They've both been to barter for bread, same as me. One cherishes liberty, just like the other. Both warm to the fire, smile to the lover. While judges may judge and legislators wrangle, they both stroke their spaniel and brush their daughter's tangle. What do I hope to contend with this verse? That neither are wiser, both heir to the curse of time weighing heavy. The slipping sand hardly stays, while we all light our candle and aim toward the day.
mm. See, the one thing that comes to mind for this is just that they all speak good games. They do speak good, they do, you know, speak with a way of trying to convince you to believe a certain thing, but at the same time, I'm not a big believer in party loyalty. I'm a big believer in critical thinking. I mean, I personally am registered as a Green. There have been several things that the Democrats have done that have disappointed me, and that goes infinitesimally for the Republicans. I will just say that much. I can't say there's a part of me that's even remotely conservative. But at the same time, liberal is one of those expressions that doesn't do justice to what I truly believe.
Well, you know,
I keep thinking of like the song by Phil Oakes, Love Me, Love Me, Love Me, I'm a liberal.
well, the thing that I have confronted one or two conservatives with is once conservative meant conserving nature,
Mm,
conserving parks, conserving and respecting life. That seems to have been left aside. And when I
Seems
asked the
like it's
gentleman
more
from,
about money now. It seems like it's more about conserving money for the same community and just not spreading it anywhere.
yeah, I asked a guy from the Heritage Foundation, whatever happened to conservation about the environment. He said, "Well, we don't like to talk about that now." And I said, "I can imagine why you don't."
Yeah, no duh.
Sir, do you want to read a couple more?
Sure, sure. I'll do this one. I just gotta go into my phone and find it. I know
That's what editing
this.
for. Don't worry about it. If it takes a minute, go ahead.
Okay, I got it. I got it. This is a longer one. This is a New York piece and is called Two Paths Metro. Inspired by my many journeys on the MTA New York City Transit subways. This is a Brooklyn-bound F local train. The next stop is West 4th Street, Washington Square. Stand clear of the closing doors, please. Bing bong. 16 stops between 14th Street and Ditmas Avenue. Is it a coincidence that the 14th Street station on 6th Avenue showcases the letters FML, proving also that fuckery is as easy as 1, 2, 3? It reminds me of how Delancey Street, Essex Street prominently features my initials JMF with the occasional ability to catch Z's. Every subway ride has a story. Mine is a track with two paths, empath and sociopath. Two distinct personalities ride on opposite sides of a mind going off the rails. They make me wonder if I'll ever take the B to Brighton Beach on a whim just to be somewhere far from Staten Island even for an hour. Or whether I'll bypass Ditmas on the F and find Coney Island in places far more sophisticated than my hyperactive mind. Or whether catching a Manhattan-bound queue at Sheepshead Bay lets me find words with an alphabetic avenue scattered through Midwood, or whether I will still be embraced by the R, whether bound for Metro Tech or Union Square or Astoria, or whether the first 5 cars on the one would trap me in a maze of dyscalculia, or whether I would take the 7 somewhere other than Main Street and Roosevelt Avenue, or whether I would take the 6 and travel back to City Island, or whether the L will connect me to my favorite artist congregations of Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, Bushwick, Park Slope, or whether I would have taken that job requiring me to take the R to the A to the G to Brooklyn Navy Yard, or whether I'll ever see a dinosaur skeleton after a long ride on the sea, or whether I'll once again take the D to Central Park, or whether I'll visit Briarwood, taking the E from Ground Zero like my mother and father once before, or whether Bay Ridge and Bensonhurst still welcome me after a long ride on the N, or whether I'll ever see controversial art exhibits getting off the 2 or 3 at the Brooklyn Museum, or whether Bowling Green Station will make me feel less claustrophobic before I catch the 4 or 5, or whether the W is the best train to take after leaving South Ferry, or whether I'd take the M to Forest Hills only to get off at Jackson Heights. I'm still asleep when the Z runs. It's still a mystery if I ever rode any of the shuttles. Subways are transitions which alter consciousness with every transfer. Lines come full circle and there are diamonds buried within round trips. Just as I've experimented with altering my state of mind with plants and fungi containing mush rainbows, such has been the case with the subway. This poem is an alchemy of adversity expressed in verses I will cross-reference in MLA 8th edition some other time. I am actively taking my trauma and transmuting it into precious memories. I am finally in a place where I am affirmed that the love between me and New York is one that is mutual. And whether or not the alphanumeric spotlights come in various colors, I am hoping that my role as a gray wizard isn't a haze for rays. And though I was diagnosed as bipolar, I am grateful to exist between dichotomies. Baruch Hashem B'li'ayin hara, I am grateful. Allow me to reach a middle path and let me continue to infuse justice in the words I continue to express. May my split personalities merge in a place where I can explore myself with a split infinitive to boldly go anywhere I can find peace.
Very nice. Very nice. You want to read one more?
Yeah, I can do one more. I can
Okay.
definitely do one more. Let's see. I think I'll do this one. This one is a personal one, and it's one of my more experimental pieces. It's called PTSD. PTSD. Post traumatic stress disorder. Prone to serious depression, pain that seldom dwindles, processing the same day, plaguing the soul, drowning, playing the sounds daily. Poor times seem definite, pessimism that seems deadly, perpetually torturous, strikingly demonic, passion terminated, seemingly destitute. Pouring tears streaming down, perusing the sorrowful darkness, photographic, the static dimension, pass through Satan's doorway, past the sour diesel, prescribed 37 drugs. Pilsner, tequila, sangria, diazepam. Parched, taste sullied, dry, pariah to society, derelict, prone to steady decline, praying that screams dissipate, prone to suicide, damned, primordial threat, safety diminished, peace threatened, seemingly dead, passion tranquilized, sudden demise, past the summit, dropping, plummeting, the soul deadens, praying that solitude dissolves.
Bravo, sir. Bravo.
Thank you
I
so much.
really enjoy when what you might call an intellectual exercise. In other words, I'm going to make a poem from PTSD using only PTSD. And it's a marvelous concept. And I think you delivered it very well. Bravo.
Oh, thank you so much. I was actually inspired by another poet, La Bruja, and she was on Deaf Poetry, and she did something with WTC. And the interesting thing about it is that, I took a little bit of a different approach to it, and she did the same thing with WTC. She actually saw a video that I did of that particular poem, and she commented on it, and she love reacted it, so I was very
Bravo.
affirmed by that. Yeah.
Well, let me leave you with one of mine. This is called Poetry How. I coax poetry with a phrase and lure her with my lazy days. I bid her sit and stare and share a lemon water with my daughter. Though I will concede in reedy, pleady fees, then times the need to beg her to recline and fend and spend sublime inspiration to this dusty, thirsty nation. And when word weighty, I would coax some darling starling to alight and fix her flight atop mine finger, linger here. I will, should she not pass freely by, take out pen and shifty, nifty pause and toss some rhymey-timey dross, hoping that on second pass the last might tweak her my pearly pension trenchant sweep, with weedy, wordsmithy worthy work, my pale palette toward the kirk. I will practice when she alludes, and I her perfume would imbue, and often as my pen does dither, she will come by and linger hither.
Mm. I really like the way you rhyme. I mean, your meter is very tight. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was out there reciting anti-war poetry at 17, I was pulled aside by one of the deans of the local poetry establishment. He said,
Mm.
Richard, rhyming, it's just not done. And if you want to be taken seriously, I would stop rhyming. I mean, right now. Don't you know that? And I said, brother, I hear you. I love E. E. Cummings like I love Wordsworth. I love, Blake just as much as I love pick one. But, if my muse orders it up, I'm going to follow that classy chassis.
100%. Definitely.
Well, sir, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
And I want
And
to thank you for having me.
I always ask my poets one last question. Do you have a message you'd like to share with the poets who'll come and listen?
I feel that if you have a dream, follow it. You don't want to live with any regrets of not following your dream. And if that dream involves poetry, don't give up. Keep growing, keep evolving, keep expanding.
Sir, I thank you so much for coming. It's been a real pleasure listening to you and talking with you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Likewise,
Have a good day, brother.
you do the
Bye bye.
same.